Or not what happened to you. Stop it. Don't let it delete your future. Trying to go into your future with the weight of your past does not work. It cannot.
Welcome back to the Unique Conversations with Chris podcast. In this episode, I'm having a conversation with Shana. Her life truly exemplifies what it means to have unbreakable strength and faith. She overcame many things in her life, and her incredible story will surely leave you inspired. A quick warning before I start the episode: some of the content may not be suitable for young children, so be cautious when watching in front of them. I feel like I also have to start with a trigger warning. Although this conversation is very inspirational and encouraging, it demonstrates Shana's true strength and ability to overcome many things in her life. Some of the topics can be distressing to some, and so I encourage you that if you find yourself in a position where you're feeling triggered, there will be resources in the description box. Welcome back to the Unique Conversations with Chris podcast. Today I have a very special guest, my first in-person guest, Miss Shana Shagwar. I'm so excited because she has been somebody that was introduced to me, and she has a book, and I read over her book, and I just had to have her come share her story and how she overcame all the things she did in her story, and I felt like her story was very inspirational. So first off, I'm so happy that you joined me here in person today. It's nice to talk to somebody live and in person. You have a book called Heal My Soul. It's available on Amazon, either Kindle or a paperback. And so, like I said, it was a very inspirational book. You definitely encountered a lot of challenges in life.
Yes.
And like I mentioned to you earlier, you do not look like what you've been through. And so could you kind of share what your book is about?
Heal My Soul is actually a book that my sisters and I collaborated on. It's about our life story. We have the same mom, but different dad. My dad is different from theirs. And we went through a lot as young girls coming up. It was a lot of generational things going on that we didn't quite understand. But we wanted to write the book to leave as a legacy for the children coming up after us so they would be able to recognize different things that have already touched our bloodline.
So when you mentioned bloodline and the importance of knowing what occurred prior to your generation, why do you think that's important?
It's important because it will visit every generation afterward, if it's not broken.
Okay. So one thing that I read recently is that trauma goes through generation to generation. And so is it important to know, because if you don't know what your history, that it's likely to repeat? Is that what the premise is? Okay.
Yes. If we didn't know that our mother, she married at 13. Okay. So we didn't know everything that was going on in her household with her parents, uncles, or whatever. We had no idea, but that left the door open so it would repeat itself. So once we came of age, then things started happening in the family. My sisters and I were separated when I was 4. My mom died when I was 4. So all of my siblings were older than me. So they went with their dad and I went with my dad. And when I went with him, I think it was a place of protection that God provided for me. So I had no idea about the incest and all those other things they had to endure.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that you guys had different fathers, and your mother passed away when you were 4.
Yes.
I'm sorry that was such a young age to lose such an important figure. So I want to acknowledge that amount of grief. We're able to have any real memories with her. So I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you.
So when you were separated from your other siblings, I imagine that also too was it something
Very,
tough to endure,
yes.
because on one hand you're losing one parental figure that you've had consistently, and then now all the siblings that you have. Now, as far as your siblings, where do you fall within the?
I'm the youngest.
Okay, so then you were definitely were accustomed to having older siblings that were probably looking out for you,
Yes.
as well as having your mom, and probably didn't have the words to explain
Right.
the feelings that you felt.
I kind of wanted to address that too. At 4, the level of grief was very, very different because it was just, you just didn't know what happened. At the funeral, we were sitting on the front row. My dad comes in, and the dad that I knew says, "You look like him, so you're going to have to go with him." I didn't go to the grave site or anything like that. But the grief intensified each time I encountered it. Saying encountered it, basically, as you grow older and, I get to 13, young womanhood, and I wished I had my mom here. That shift to a different level of grief. So it was ongoing until finally you have to face it and accept it and come to a place in it where you are good with her being gone.
Right, right. I always say that the grief that I've encountered in my own personal journey, it comes in waves. And so at one point you could be having a great week, a great month, a great year, and then there's one trigger or one memory, and all of a sudden you feel like you're in the bottom of the pit with the grief again. So it makes a lot of sense, especially in those times where it would be nice to have your mom growing up as a young woman and having her to answer those questions and showing you how to walk through life. Yes. And having those memories. So I imagine that was tough.
Very.
So you mentioned that you had a father that you knew to be your father, but then you were introduced to your biological father at the funeral.
Yes.
Is that the first time that you met him?
I didn't know him that day. I didn't know who he was. So.
At 4,
yes,
yeah,
no.
That's
yes.
a lot, really young to try to map out the whole family dynamics then.
Yes.
So I would imagine with the tragic loss of your mom, then compounded with the introduction of this new person who's your father, and being taken away from your siblings, that already started your life journey with its challenges.
Yes. So I think that's when rejection first popped up.
And why do you say rejection?
My stepdad said, "You have to go with him." So I was rejected and torn away from the family, in my understanding.
Right.
So I think that was, I felt abandoned and rejected at that time.
Okay. So when you went with your new father, what were you guys in the same state, same city, or did you move away from your siblings and their father?
We stayed in the same state. They lived in one part of Texas, and I live in a rural part of Texas. Actually, I stayed with this new dad for 2 years, and we were going from, woman to woman or whatever. Him with a little girl, it was just very hard for him. So during that 2 years, a lot of things happened that I really didn't discuss in the book, because when you start to be transparent with things, there's certain things you kind of want to pull and cover up and not really share. But during that 2 years of going to different women, they had other children, especially older boys or whatever. I think it was when my dad found me in a closet with an older stepbrother or another woman's son, that he decided he couldn't take care of me. He would come in from wherever he had been, and they hadn't fed me or bathed me or clothed me. Remind you, I was about 4 going on 5 at this time. And it was really rough with him. So by the age of 6, he says, "I got to take you where I know you're going to be cared for."
Gotcha. So So he allowed you to be cared for by one of the women that he was dating.
Mm-hmm.
And because he found you in a situation that could be compromising, probably to protect you from
Mm-hmm.
things that could happen with, older child with the younger child in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
He decided that it'd be better for you to go live somewhere else.
Yes.
And where was that place?
And that place was with his mother.
Okay.
So he took me to my grandparents, and they were much older at that point, and they were like in the recliner chairs, really needing help in the home. I was 6 at the time. He dropped me off to them, and here comes that abandonment multiplied. So he dropped me off and said, I'm going to get a pack of cigarettes. I'm going to the store. I'll be back. And I stayed in the window all night waiting for him to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't come back till I was 6 then. I was probably 15 maybe when he came back into my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's another layer of,
Yes.
I can see why you say that's abandonment, because on one hand, you've already had the transition from being in the familiar home with your mom and your siblings to being forced to bounce from home to home with these different women that he was dating to help take care of you. And then finding yourself in his parents' home with grandparents. I'm sure, I didn't know what your relationship with them prior to, but it didn't sound
Never
like
had met them.
Right. So it didn't sound like you had a established relationship with them. And then for him to leave to go get the pack of cigarettes and never return, that just, I would imagine as a young girl, that left you feeling like, well, nobody wants me.
Nobody wants me. Nobody loves me. I grew up with that all my life. Nobody wanted me. I didn't know that my dad went to prison, is why he didn't come back, but they did allow him to get me to a safe place.
Okay.
Before he went and turned himself in.
Okay. So that makes sense. So, and he didn't feel comfortable leaving you with the care of that one particular woman with the children, older boys. And so he felt like the best place would be for you with his parents. And then you mentioned that they were probably a retirement age, older,
definitely
needed more help getting. There weren't. So talk about what that was like to once you realized
it was slavery. No.
Slavery. How? I mean, was it just? Because I read some. You did speak about this in the book, but I prefer you to use your words because I don't want to.
Well, they needed a lot of help. Okay. They had already raised one set of grandchildren and 6 kids of their own, and then here come I. So I had hardship driver's license at 10. Yeah. So I had to drive them to and fro once a month downtown. I took care of all the bills. I fed the chickens. I slopped the hogs. I watered the gardens. I did all the laundry. I cooked before I went to school, breakfast and lunch. And my grandfather usually cooked the dinner. So I had a yard route, so everything that they needed, I was the one to take care of all the way up to 15.
So at 10, you're driving and handling most of the household chores and household responsibilities. Did your dad have any other siblings or any like aunts and uncles that would come by?
We had a lot of those. Okay. He had 6 siblings. One had deceased, and my grandparents raised those 2 kids.
I have a 10-year-old, and there's no way that I could imagine that she would be in the position mentally and emotionally and physically to handle maintaining our home and driving and cooking and cleaning. And I mean,
if the need is there, you can do it. However, at 6, when my dad left, I was told then that everybody in the house had to work. So they weren't going to be with me always. So they needed me to be independent, able to take care of myself. And while I was there, take care of them. So that's what I did basically. I would drive them to town once a month. I'd go in the bank, do the banking. I'd come out, I'd go in the grocery store, buy all the grocery store groceries, and they would be in the car, sitting there, and I'd sit on these wooden soda pop cases. So I'd sit up high, so I could drive.
Oh, wow.
But you did what you had to do. And had I not came, I don't know what they would have done, but they did have other children and grandchildren, which I have two cousins. We're the same age. So my birthday's in November, the other one's December, and the other one is January. But we had lots of kids, grandkids, great grandkids in the family. And like I said, her other children. But as long as I was there was no need for someone else to come and help.
Right. Because in their eyes, and I would imagine with that generation, I'm pretty sure that dynamic was norm to have children in a position to where they could help like that.
Yes. Everybody worked in the country. We're going to go pick berries. We're going to pick cotton. We're going to chop wood. We're going to haul hay. We're going to shoot birds, go hunting.
Wow. And so you mentioned country. Where in the country in Texas?
Actually, Terrell, Texas.
Terrell, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So you spent like 5 years living in Terrell,
mm-hmm.
in the country,
mm-hmm.
doing what you call slave labor.
Yes.
Which it seems like a lot of responsibility for a child, but it sounds like in the dire need of their situation, they felt like that was the best way to care for you, is to have you help them so you have a safer place to live. Were you able to maintain school and stay in school from that's how I would assume that's about 4th, 5th grade up until what, high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Whew. Yes, I got up at 5 a.m. every day so I could take care of my chores and still catch the bus for school. And then after school, I come home. I had like a little snow cone stand out front of the house.
So entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I sold snow cones, hamburgers, chips, and cookies and pickles. And but yes, I was a loner pretty much because I wasn't allowed to have friends because I had too much work to do. So
you missed a big part of your childhood of being just a child.
Yes.
And that could come in another wave of grief.
Yes. Well, when you finally decide that you're grown and then you can do what you want to do, you will want to do some of the things like jump up and down on the bed that you never got a chance to do,
Yeah.
Different things like that. So I did get to experience some things afterwards. So we're pretty much covering the turmoil, the trauma, the grief, the abandonment, the rejection. We're talking about it from one perspective. But later on, we're going to talk about it now from a different perspective.
Okay. So, from 10 to 15, you lived with your grandparents. And then at 15, what choice did you make at 15?
At 15, I made a choice that I didn't want to do that anymore.
Okay.
My grandparents always said they had an open door policy. All you have to do is just walk out.
Oh, wow.
You don't have to be here. So that was my choice. I didn't want to be there anymore. Plus, from 4 to 15, I didn't get to see my sisters and my brother. My grandparents felt like it was best that we didn't communicate, let them do what they do, and we're going to do what we do here.
You guys had different fathers? Is that what the situation was?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I grew up hearing that I wasn't my father's child, but I'm a spitting image of him. I look like my dad. Everything about my dad, I look like him. The softer parts of me are my mom. Okay. But that was the first thing I wanted to run to, was home. What I lost, which was my family, my sisters, my brother, I had no idea what I was running to.
Okay. What did you find?
What I found was we were totally different beings.
Okay. They
were raised under a different rule, and I was raised to work, to do things. They were in an incestual household. Okay. And that I didn't know anything about sex. Okay. Other than the perverted things that happened before I came to my grandparents. Okay. So when things like that happen to you, people don't understand. They think you're a bad person, this, that, or the other. It's just that I was introduced to sexual things a lot earlier than most other people.
Okay. You mentioned that you guys had different values. Your values were to work hard and earn your share.
Yes.
How was it different from how you were raised?
They were raised with being totally dependent upon their father.
Okay.
What he would give and wouldn't give.
Okay.
I was looking for a job. Can I find a job? My oldest sister, she had a child by her father, and she wanted me to babysit. But again, I was used to earning money, not necessarily being used, by someone to take care of. Yeah, I'll keep him if you pay me. So needless to say, that reunion wasn't, it didn't last good for long. We just were too different. And basically, they kicked me out in the rain. My two sisters did. My brother, when I finally got to sit and talk with him to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, his wife accused me of trying to have sex with my brother.
Brunch is a time to relax, unwind, and enjoy great food with friends and family. But what if we told you that brunch could also be a time for meaningful conversation? How about a unique conversation? Join me and the guests from my first season of my podcast as we have our first unique conversation live and in person. We have Chandra Smith, who shared her story about how she learned to choose herself.
Don't you ever change how you love, and you're just choosing to give it to the wrong people.
And we have Ashley Coleman, who shared her story about how she survived narcissistic abuse as well as PTSD as a result of being a military veteran.
It moved very quickly, almost whirlwind. I think I met him, and then in 30 days, he was moving in.
And then we had Kimberly, the counselor, who had a conversation with us about mental health.
You don't know how important mental health is until you have to fight for it.
And then we have Shana Sharkwire, whose story represents the true meaning of being resilient and breaking free.
Either you're going to remain a victim or you're going to become the victor.
And then there's me, your host, Chris, where I shared my entire life story as well as my journey with mental health. The best way for me to handle my emotions is to not show them and not cry. And I can't wait to see you at our brunch and conversation event. Come hungry, come curious, and leave with a full stomach and a new perspective. Don't miss out. Purchase your tickets now to secure your spot. Tickets are limited, so act now so that you don't miss out on amazing food with great conversation.
I was so offended. I was so, wow, where did this come from? I had no idea the lifestyle that my family had lived.
Okay.
So then I couldn't stay with my brother and his wife. I never got to spend a night there, right? So I ended up sleeping in the park. And this was in Fort Worth, Texas. I was out there on my own, and I spent the night with my brother, and I was sleeping on the sofa, and his dad came in and raped me. I mean, pinned me down where I couldn't get away, this, that, or the other. So I tried to kill him. Yes, I did. I did know how to protect myself. So I had an iron bar beside the sofa where I slept. And I grabbed that bar and I tried to beat him to death once he got off of me. And he told my sisters, oh, she's on drugs really bad. She tried to kill me over there, And at this point, the fight came up behind my Social Security check. So I went downtown all bandaged up and to see if I could get my Social Security check from my mom stop from going to him. But I was out there with no financial support, this, that, or the other. So when I tried to get that Social Security check changed over into my name, they told me that I had to be out of school, you know, well, I had to be 16 before that could happen.
Right.
So that meant I had to stop high school so that I could get that check in my name. Nobody did I know in Fort Worth at that time. So other than my siblings, and when I that was the last straw, I decided, okay, forget it. But you feel like nobody loves you. So I did turn to drugs and alcohol. And I'm not talking about the good kind of alcohol. Probably what I could afford, the rock gut or whatever of alcohol. So I dropped out for a whole year. But as I slept in that park, somebody got killed in that park every night. And I slept where they changed their clothes at in the swimming area and laid on that concrete little bench you sit on. So that's where I slept. But I saw my brother there, and I had it. Uh, we can talk about the dance with suicide, uh, the many attempts that I attempted to take myself out of here because it was so much and I just could not endure it anymore. Um, Thinking of the first suicidal attempt, I was in my grandma's house and I took a whole bottle of pills. I was just tired. I had been working all day, scrubbing the clothes with the scrub board, hanging them out in the 100-degree heat on the line. I had so much going on. And she was, they sit in the recliners all day. So she was fussing, saying, hurry up and get that done so you can iron these sheets and take this in there and put it in my closet. So when I went in there, I just took a whole bottle of pills and I laid there to die. Okay.
How old were you when this happened?
uh, I had to be around 11.
Okay.
That first attempt was about 11. Um, when my dad got out of prison around 15 was the second attempt. And it was about my cousins lying on me, telling my grandparents that I had been in a car full of guys. I was supposed to have went to the swimming pool for the first time in my life. And I was there and the coach was teaching us how to swim. Coach Furlow was in the water or whatever. But they came back and said, yeah, she was in a car with a bunch of guys, and I was not. But she called my dad. So when my dad got there, he came in and he had these steel toe boots on. And the first thing he did was kicked me in my chest. And I was standing in front of a heater with that white cotton in the back of it, a gas heater. And he kicked me in between the wall and that heater. So, and I have the burns back here to prove it. But I came from behind that heater and I ran to the kitchen and that was the first attempt. So, second suicide attempt when I said, I'd rather die than live and continue this, the way you guys treat me. And so he said, you don't want to be here? Just go. I was out of there. So that's how that transition occurred.
Wow.
With that. So the third attempt was when I was in that park. I just couldn't take any more. I didn't know how to swim. So they had this pool and I just jumped off into the 6 feet of water and I sinked all the way down to the bottom. And when you're down there, you're thinking, okay, I'm waiting for death. This is it. I'm not doing it anymore, you know? And I just sit there. I just sit at the bottom of the pool, and then my brother jumped in to that pool. He didn't know where I was. I didn't know he was anywhere in the vicinity. He jumped into that pool and he pulled me up. And when I came up and could finally get some air after choking all that water out, I say, somebody loves me. Somebody actually loves me.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me the reason to continue to live.
Because your brother came and saved you.
Yes.
It's the same brother that had the wife?
Yes.
Okay.
I started staying with him after they broke up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I couldn't stay there anymore after his dad did what he did.
Right. And so the same dad that you initially thought was your or was around you before your mother passed is the same dad that attacked you later.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. And that's something he had done to his own daughters as well.
Yes.
Did he ever get in trouble for that?
No. A matter of fact, we held the book until he died because, the statute of limitations are different, and that's their father. And they didn't want him to get in trouble for it. I was staying in that park and I decided, okay, I have to work until I turn 16 to get my check to come to me. So I would walk to downtown Fort Worth from Allen Street. There was a park on Allen every day looking for a job. Okay. I didn't have clothes. I didn't have food. I didn't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I was walking to go downtown and look for a job. So this lady that's usually sitting on the porch on Allen Street, she says, "Baby, you hungry?" And I just nodded my head.
Mm-hmm.
"Yes, ma'am." She said, "Come sit right here on this porch. I'll be right back." But she asked me, she said, "Do you want to take a bath?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, please." So she said, "Those are some clothes that my granddaughter left here, and you can have them if you can wear them." But I'm quite sure she had watched me come by every day. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm trying to find a job." She said, "Well, you can't go smelling and looking like that. You come on in here and take a bath." So God always have someone in place.
It sounds like she was your angel at that time.
I was so hungry.
Mm-hmm.
She was my lifesaver, yes. So I walked to downtown that day. I got a job at the child support division as a file clerk downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way back, I went by the grocery store because she gave me $5. I went by the grocery store so I could have some food to eat. And I asked them, could I be a cashier there? So I got 2 jobs on the same day. So that job that I got at the grocery store, when they told me I could come work there, I asked them, could I get an advance on my pay?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a $150 advance that day because I had seen a garage apartment on Allen Street, and I got that apartment. So it was a furnished little place. It wasn't much. It was just a little box with a bathroom, a piece of kitchen, and place to sleep. So that was my first place.
Wow. It sounds like you had all sorts of protection around you at that time, because from the person who allowed you to get clean and dressed up, you're able to land 2 jobs that you ended up getting an apartment. So it sounds like you went from a place where you didn't know to you had some kind of consistency and some kind of safety on your own.
I believe that only occurred when I made the choice to live.
Okay.
So after that suicide attempt in the bottom of that pool, I was determined, and it took 2 weeks. I walked from that park to downtown for 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks, and I was not giving up. I'm every day I'm headed downtown. I'm going to find a job.
And how old were you, 16 at the time or 15?
15.
15. And then you worked until you turned 16?
Yes.
Okay, and then at 16, what happened then?
At 16, whoop, whoop, I went downtown to the Social Security Department and say, "Hey, I'm 16 now. This is my address. I want my checks to start coming in my name." And that happened. And then I found, while I was doing that, I found a job at the federal building downtown Fort Worth, cleaning offices at night. So I could let the job downtown go so I could go back to school. And then I let the job go at the grocery store, Strick's grocery store, so I could then, go to school during the day and work at night.
Gotcha. So once you were able to get your independence by getting your Social Security checks, and then also, get your own place with your own address,
I graduated from Polytechnic.
Congratulations. That's an accomplishment, especially after dropping out to take care of, life.
I was the oldest thing in high school.
I could see how that could be for some people intimidating to go back. Like you said, the oldest person there, or two, you're like,
High school.
well, I'm already working, I already have a place. What's the point of going back? But I'm proud of you for that. That's good for you.
Thank you.
So, so you went through, you got your place, you're working, you went back to high school. Reading your book, I know that that's not where it ends. You have so many other chapters of your story that I don't want to miss out on them. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. One of the first relationships you mentioned with somebody, you said you endured a tumultuous relationship. Can you explain what that was like?
You're looking at a 16-year-old girl with her own place, going to school. So I met an older guy, and he was very physically abusive. So I say that's when I got my PhD in abuse, because, the minute he slapped me, it was like, I don't want anything to do with you. But he was so apologetic. I'm so sorry. I fell for that, and we were together for quite a little bit. But anytime he wanted to go somewhere, it was a fight coming so that I wouldn't want to go. But I endured that with him. And when I've had enough, I was like, okay, I'm going to change the locks on my apartment door because he hadn't moved in with me. And I'm going to stand here with this rifle and please kick my door in. Kick it in. Come on in.
You're ready.
Yeah. So
Locked and loaded.
He did. And when I shot, he pretty much said, you're crazy, you're crazy. So that broke that relationship.
Okay. And how long were you in that relationship?
I think 16, 17, 18, because I was graduating high school.
Geez, so you went through so much from 4 to 18.
Yes.
From sexual abuse, physical abuse, feeling neglected, feeling unwanted, having to pretty much fend for yourself from the age of 10. I don't know if it started before that because you mentioned that at 10, that's what you was doing, the driving and whatnot. Having your father leave you to go to prison, to be rejected by them again, over and over again. At what point did you learn to pivot and become the person or the woman that you are now? Because I would imagine by 21, you've experienced so many things. What was that moment like where you decided to pivot and change your perspective on life?
I'll give you the first pivot was basically, I don't want to be treated like this anymore. From my grandparents' house by my dad, so I left.
Right.
Second pivot, I don't want to live anymore. And then because nobody loves me, but when my brother saved me, somebody loves me. Okay. So that was second pivot. And it gave me that tenacity to go after, life or whatever. And remember, I had been raised to take care of myself because they said they wouldn't be there because they were older. The next pivot was when you've had enough, you don't continue to take what you had enough of. Right. Okay. So no, you're not going to hit me anymore. You're not going to throw me through another door, nor another window, nor another wall. This is it. That's all. And when you make that decision, the pivot is very easy because you're not backing down. That's your standard. That's it. I worked that part-time job. I got married at 21, first marriage at 21, and I was in college. I went to school to be a physical therapist assistant. And I did that work for over 20 years once I graduated from that. My first marriage, I married a Casanova who wouldn't know what faithfulness was to save his life. Once he and I got married, it was like, okay, that's it. That's all. I don't want to do this anymore. You know, I don't want to come home and find you in bed with someone else. I don't
Oh,
want to come,
wow.
you know, so it was that level of, but the pivot came when, you know, sometimes you say, well, I'll dish it out as much as you're dishing it in, you know. So I decided, well, I'm going to show you how to cheat. If you want to know how to cheat, let me show you how to do that. But how many of you know men don't take it when it's coming back at them?
Right.
So he put a 30-30 Winchester to my head, and I had to call my dad, who then lived in Dallas, and I said, Dad, he has this gun up to my head, and he's saying he's going to blow my brains out. He said, give him the phone. Give him the phone. I said, my dad wants to talk to you, and he never moved the gun. You know, my dad wants to talk to you. He said, I pray you're there when I get there. He said, please be there. He said, and I'll be there in 15 minutes. Click, my dad hung the phone up. I say, I don't think you ought to be here when my dad gets here. I really don't think you want to be here if you want to live, you know. So when he took the gun down, I got out of the house. My dad told me, you leave. You go ahead and leave, you know. So when he took that gun down, I began to gather little things. I left a house full of things, okay? Big house full of things. Not that important versus my life. So I left, and we got divorced at that point.
Right. Wow. So you went from a physically abusive relationship, 16 through 18. Then you went to I don't even know what kind of abuse that is, but where he wasn't faithful.
Yes.
And cheated on you. And well, that is physical because he pulled out a gun. That's not something that's to take lightly at all. Okay. that's so much.
Breathe.
That is so much to geez Louise. I mean, I read your book, but to hear you talk about it, that's a lot.
It is.
How did you get to process your trauma, or do you feel like you've processed it all?
Oh, I've had to process it. I'm now 63. You're talking way back there, but you will have to process it before you can get over it. Either you're going to remain a victim or you're going to become the victor. So, yes, those things happened to me, and I would have to tuck them just to push through life.
Right.
You know, and they would come up at the most horrible times, you know, after you've suppressed them. They come up and you don't know when they're going to come up. But just knowing that I'm older now, my mom died. I didn't know she died at 4. I know she was gone at 4. So as I matured, I was able to put things in proper perspective.
That makes sense.
So that the healing kind of took place to say she didn't abandon me. Okay. As I got older, my stepdad did not reject me at 4. He was just placing me, I don't have any ownership to you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Sense. Yeah, when you look at it from the perspective of an adult.
Yes.
He probably couldn't have taken you without the permission of your father, and your father doesn't sound like he was just willing to just give you
right
to this other gentleman that maybe I don't know what kind of relations they did or didn't have. So it makes sense.
Yes. But you can't see that going through. So that's the point we always have to realize is, yes, I went through this, and until you mature enough to rightly understand what was happening, you will have this, oh, you did me so wrong. So forgiveness will never come.
Right. That makes sense. So looking at the traumatic experiences from the childhood perspective, and then revisit them as an adult, and maybe coming to some resolution that they didn't reject me, or what do they call it? Reshaping or reframing. That's what I'm looking for. Reframing that situation to where it fits, to where it makes sense, and perhaps healing that that perspective of, well, you know, no one wanted me. Well, it was a difficult situation.
At 21, yes, 21, I went to my dad's house and I asked him if I could talk to him, and he said yes. I told him how much I hated him, and he was taken back. And I don't understand why you would say that, you know, because my dad was a real cowboy and he was a real tough dude, you know. So for me to talk to him like that was a risk within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me why. You know, I said, because you just left me
Okay.
when I was 4. And I don't know what I did to you for you to think that I deserve to go into slavery, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would never, you know, I was in slavery. Yes. I had to do everything. Yes. And why did you dislike me so much like that?
Mm-hmm.
It broke my dad to tears. He said, what you didn't know was that I had to go away to prison. What you didn't know is that they were good enough to raise me. I felt like they would be good enough to raise you, and that was the safest place I could leave you.
Right.
He said, what you didn't know is that I didn't know how to comb a little girl's hair. I didn't know how to bathe a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he say, in life with me, you know, I didn't have a place of my own. I'd have to stay with a lady here, a lady there, bedpost to bedpost. But he apologized and he said he was truly sorry. But what helped me forgive him was he said, I did the best that I could do. So there came forgiveness at 21 from my dad, regardless to.
So, yeah. So having that difficult conversation, having that realization that he did the best that he could do, helped heal that part of you
Yes.
that felt like he rejected, abandoned, didn't care,
Mm-hmm.
you know, purposely put you in harm's way or put you in a situation to where you weren't cared for the way that you desired to be cared for. So I imagine that conversation was tough, but it was necessary.
It was necessary. I thought I was grown at 21.
Oh, of course, we all do.
So therefore, yeah, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind.
Yeah.
Trust me, you're going to need that piece. Don't give it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's powerful right there, because I feel like as you were speaking, if more people were to have those uncomfortable and authentic and possibly, what is the word? I don't want to say chaotic, but have those conversations where you don't really know how they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like uncomfortable conversations. As more people have those uncomfortable conversations, perhaps more people will be healed.
Yes.
Because I feel like sometimes when we don't trust the person enough to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, we don't have those conversations, and we walk around with this weight of unmet expectations or misunderstandings. Because if you didn't understand that he went to prison, your story would have been,
he left me
with his parents and went on to have his, have his fun and forgot about me, but he was, serving time. Or, the whole story about, well, my brothers and sisters' fathers pushed me away because he didn't look like me. I didn't look like him. So he didn't want me. But in fact, it was probably legally his responsibility to hand you over to him. Now, what I will say is that even reflecting on my own story, there's ways that adults can handle it better and speak to children. And I feel like the more and more I have conversations with people, the more and more hopefully it makes them more aware that although kids don't understand things from an adult perspective, there's still room to get down to their level and try to help them maneuver, because they're human. They're tiny humans. They have thoughts and emotions and feelings. And so just listening to your story, there's so many ways that could have been explained to you better. Saying, okay, well, my parents were elderly, they couldn't do things. So it wasn't that they were trying to force you into these things. It's like, this is the only thing that they could do. And the fact that your mother's now gone, and the fact that your father has done something that's had him go to prison, your grandparents are aging, so they're probably trying to instill in you, okay, she's got to learn how to fend for herself because she doesn't have a whole lot of family. And so in your mind, like, no, you're telling me to do all your chores, but they could, in their mind, in their perspective, they were just trying to instill values to help you be able to function on your own. So you, at 21, you're recently or getting divorced or in the process of a divorce. At some point between 21 and where you said now 63, you've remarried, right?
Yes.
Okay. And had children.
Well, I had a lot of, can I say, miscarriages?
Okay.
We can go there. I have I have a son that came with the marriage with my husband. When we got married, he had 4. We got his youngest when he was 8. So I haven't birthed a child of my own.
Okay.
So with my husband there, people don't realize the pain and the trauma from having miscarriages. Most people think, oh, the baby, it wasn't even a baby yet. Wrong.
I disagree.
Yeah, wrong. It depends on your perception of things. But even in that trauma of getting pregnant, it wasn't the fact that I couldn't get pregnant. It was the fact that it wouldn't stay in the womb. It would either get caught in the tubes or whatever. The last one blew my right tube out. I think I carried that one for 3 months. So he was a nice little size by then. And, but you begin to have the guilt, you blame yourself. There's something wrong with you. But you have to change your perspective of it. It's not that I couldn't get pregnant. It's just that, I couldn't bring it to term. So that didn't have anything to do with my abilities, but the will of God. So sometimes things doesn't come through because God is protecting you or he's protecting the child.
Okay. I completely agree with your stance. I did have my own miscarriage. It's not something that you can process because, like, you mentioned the feedback of, oh, it wasn't a child. Well, I heard her. It was a girl for me. I heard her heartbeat. I started to envision her. My children were aware of her coming into this world. And so to have that ripped from you was one of the most painful experiences.
Yes.
I have to this day that I don't know that you can ever, there's not anything that you can feel with that.
Yes. That is very hard. It's very difficult, especially for both parties. I'm going to give you this. Men just endure differently. Okay. Women, it's a whole nother beast for a woman to lose a child. Because, I named every child I had, you know what I'm saying, that I got pregnant with. But if you're able to endure the grief, normal grief, not abnormal grief, you have to go through the grieving process, even with a miscarriage. You have to be able to grieve normally so that you can live. It's a part of you missing. It's like an amputee, an amputation. When something gets cut off, you're going to miss it. That same thing with a woman losing a child. And I don't think we're educated enough to support a woman losing a child. Okay, come on, let's just get over it. You should be, moving on. Get over it already. No, late in the midnight hours when she's crying, she's mourning. People have to understand that process. There is a process from what happened to being able to endure and to move forward. And you have to be willing to go through the process when you lose a child, when you suffer abuse, abandonment, rejection. There is a process. And that process starts with it happened.
I like that. Because it sounds, you just acknowledge it. Because I know for me sometimes, and even throughout my own life, sometimes the way that I dealt with a lot of things is suppressing it and just keeping moving forward, steamrolling, keeping busy with work or whatever that I had at that time to keep me from thinking about that thing. Whether it's, the miscarriage or whether it's, any of the experiences that caused trauma for me, I have a tendency to disassociate from it and just ignore it and sweep it under the rug and keep going. But acknowledging it is allowing it to say, okay, this happened to me. I'm still a worthy person. I'm still deserving. God still loves me. But I still have to process it. And my process starts with admitting it, that it happened.
It happened. It happened. Now, what can you do about it?
A lot of times you can't.
Because it what? Past tense happened. Okay. So we have to look at it where it is and say, okay, wow, I'm waking up after surgery and they're telling me they got to remove my right tube because this almost killed me, losing this kid, and my baby did die. So now I have to go through the normal process. Cry, scream, yell, get angry. It's a normal process. But we'll shut it down and say, but that's a time bomb waiting to go off later.
Yeah, I agree.
And what we do is we take it out on people, that we shouldn't, because they had nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I was quite that way with when I saw other pregnant women that didn't want children.
Yeah, I had to face that when I was going through the journey of them telling me that I would not be able to have children unless I did these expensive fertility treatments, or because I've had, fibroids or all these other diagnoses that I got. And yet I see this woman who is, I don't want to judge, but in my opinion, was not being careful and just having these children and not taking care of them like I would take care of my own. But I was like, God, what are you doing?
Yes.
Why are you blessing this person with 5-6 children that she barely takes care of, and I'm begging you for one? What is wrong with me that you won't give it to me? And I just had to learn that when I finally surrendered and said, you know what, God, if my bonus son is the only son that I know, then I'm fine with that. Or if I have to adopt, or I just, and that's when my 2 babies came along, like shortly after that, within a couple of years. But it's just, I know that feeling of looking at somebody have something that you want so badly. And it's like, well, why does she get to have it? And maybe not even want it.
Right.
And I'm begging you for it.
Yes. So we learn not to covet what other people have.
Right.
As we mature. Okay. I'm going to give you that one for free. It's not going to just come easily because it stands out. It pops out, well, I would treat that kid so much better, or whatever. But it's like how you look. When you look at you in the mirror, what don't you like about you? You have to accept what God's choice was. He created me like this. I'm a designer piece. You're not going to find another like me. I'm unique. Okay.
One of a kind.
You have to be able to get it straight. Oh, I want to change my nose. Oh, I want to change my hips, my lips, and all this, but I want to be authentically me. I want whatever God has for me. I don't want what somebody else has. I used to say I wanted a house full of kids, 12. would have
wow.
been wonderful, you know, just
Mine
farm
was
living.
4. But
Yeah. Okay. I wanted a lot of kids. Well, guess what? I have a lot of kids now. I have a lot of kids. Hi, guys. Mom's got to say hi. They are spiritual children
okay.
that God sent. Um, when I got married the second time when I got married. We got married in September. By November, I had an 8-year-old
Mm.
boy. You understand? But now let me take you back to when I needed a home.
Mhm.
Remember?
Mhm.
So my heart was already prepared to say, "Oh yeah, I'll take you. Come on." You know, whatever comes with the husband, you know,
Yeah.
I accept that.
Package deal.
So I got this 8-year-old who's the love of my life. Eh, but when you meet people that will say, "Oh, he's not your blood, so you're not going to treat him like you would treat your blood." No, I'm
Yeah.
going to teach my boy how to get it.
So you're now married and you got
Mhm.
your bonus
Mhm.
baby, your son,
Mhm.
and you have other spiritual children that you've
Yes.
adopted along your journey.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about what you're up to now
Mm.
because I know you have boots on the ground
Mhm.
and then you have other things that you have going on. You want to share?
Oh, wow. Um, everything is like a whirlwind right now.
Okay.
I've been doing ministry since maybe around 1994.
Okay.
I've been pretty much full time ministry since 1998.
Okay.
So I do a lot of itinerant ministry. I do a lot of traveling,
Okay.
going from church to church. I'm about the kingdom. I'm not about religion. I'm not about denomination. Okay. I'm about the kingdom of God. So with well, let's give you marriage maintenance. So I marry and counsel marriages. I do a lot of premarital counseling because I'm not going to marry you if you don't do the premarital counseling.
Okay.
So I have a little Facebook site set up. Marriage Maintenance Equipping Hub is the name of it.
Okay.
And you can go out there. It's a private group. You can, you know, request to join. But on that particular page, if I married you, you're already a part of that group.
Okay.
Okay. Because everybody need to maintain
Yeah.
their marriage.
Yeah.
It's like an automobile. You have to do maintenance. I also have Boots on the Ground. I have a public page and a private page. Boots on the Ground is actually 4 years old this month.
Oh.
I said I wasn't going to celebrate it this year. It's it's so amazing that God takes things from your level of understanding. You know, now that I've matured a little bit more with that ministry, I understand it to a whole nother dimension. But you have to have your boots on the ground in everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to boots on the ground in your marriage, you have to do your part.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to your boots on the ground on your job, you have to do your part. Well, I have several books that I'm getting ready to really focus on.
Okay.
I have all the content. I was working on transitioning into adulthood because I think this generation really needs it. So that's I got that book in queue.
Okay. So it sounds like you have a lot coming up
I
and
do.
going on. Is there one central place that someone could follow you or
Well, I'm out there, and I'm not computer savvy, but I do have an Instagram page. I don't have anything posted out there. Okay. But you can follow me on Facebook. You have the Boots on the Ground Global Training Center. The Marriage Maintenance is out there. Equipping Hub. I do have a website. It's a bootsontheground.org. Uh, so I'm out there.
Okay.
And if you Google me, you'll find me.
And of course, I'll have, if you're listening in on this, I have it in the show notes. And then of course, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll have it in the description. So one other question that I wanted to ask, and I typically ask some variation of this to each person, is if you could give one solid piece of advice to someone that may experience similar things that happen to you in life, which your life has got so many things that people can glean from. But if you could, I'd offer one piece of advice to anybody that's going through a traumatic time or a difficult time, what would that be?
Wow. I guess I'm ready for this. Let me give you this. You are not what happened to you. Stop it. Don't let it delete your future. Trying to go into your future with the weight of your past does not work. It cannot go into your future. Stop it. Also, God will always provide a way of escape. How do you get out of this? How do I get over this? First of all, it happened. Okay? Now, what do I need to get from it? I need to get how to serve people by staying in my grandparents' house. I need to get how to protect and supervise children by the sexual abuse that I went through. What did I get from this? I got how to tell women, don't let no man hit you. Come on. Change your perspective. You got to mature, grow from where it happened to where you are now. Be delivered from people. The only opinions that should really matter to you is that of God and yourself. What do you think about you? And get your value together about what you're worth, who you are.